So, that stated, you may be wondering what's going on here. So this comes into play, I promise. We're going to have a little fun here. So we've talked a lot about partners and how we're trying to find the right people for the right place, just as Matt's done, just as we did with Dan. And our next speaker is going to take that to another level. But first, this is going to be going back to high school for many of you. Humor me. Parlez-vous français? Oui? Non? Ce n'est pas de problème. Some of them responded, some of you, thank you, and you were able to translate what that meant in your head. That's exactly what Dr. Craig Przybyla did as he went over on an AFRL mission, an international mission, to help translate what we needed to our allies and back to us. Sounds kind of like a secret agent, trust me. He'll talk about it more. So, please, welcome to the stage, Dr. Craig Przybyla, as he covers international missions, research opportunities and capabilities, growing a family, and above all, expecting the unexpected.
Les portes de l'avenir sont ouvertes à ceux qui savent les pousser. The doors to the future are open to those who know how to push through them. This French expression tells us that the future belongs to those who know how to break through the doors blocking their way. I became a scientist and engineer because I love to solve problems and innovate ways to improve the world around me. However, in my research and in life, I have often encountered doors or barriers blocking my way. Have you ever felt like you were in a room full of doors, unsure of which one to take? Perhaps some of them were locked when you tried them, or others, when opened, only revealed dark passages. My name is Craig Przybyla, and I have worked as a composite research engineer for the last 15 years and focused much of my career on the characterization of fiber-reinforced composites, particularly ceramic ones in extreme environments. Today, I would like to share with you my experience living in France during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2018, after many years as the Composite Performance Research Team lead, I was ready for a change and decided to apply for the Engineering and Scientists Exchange Program, or ESEP. This is a Department of the Air Force program that enables its scientists and engineers to work for 2 years embedded in the research laboratory of one of our allied nation partners. I was selected to go to Paris, France, and work at the Office National d'Études et de Recherche Aérospatiale, or ONERA, the French Aerospace Laboratory. For non-English speaking assignments, participants spend the first 6 months at the Defense Language Institute in Washington, D.C. As you can tell, I learned to speak French with hardly any accent. C'est très magnifique, no? In 2019, in August, my wife Laura, 6 kids, yeah, 6, and I boarded an airplane for France with visions of amazing French cuisine, beautiful French gardens, and expansive French chateaus, along with my excitement at the opportunity to work with some of the leading experts in the world in my field. Well, at least this was the vision of Laura and me. Our children were not quite as excited when we told them that they would have to move across the Atlantic and start at a new school, not knowing anyone. Despite the near mutiny, we arrived safe in France and moved into our apartment overlooking the beautiful Seine River. Laura and I felt like we had won the proverbial jackpot. Well, as you can imagine, things did not go quite as we had planned. When we first arrived in Paris, we thought it would be amazing to take a family picture in front of the Eiffel Tower. We were having a wonderful time being photographed until we realized that the couple pretending to take pictures next to us was actually running off with my wife's purse that contained her passport and cell phone. To make matters worse, The next week, when I was picking up my wife's new cell phone in our obnoxiously large 9-passenger van that should never be driven on narrow Parisian streets by an amateur, I sideswiped another car while parallel parking. Then, to top that off, a few weeks later, the French transportation workers initiated the longest transportation strike in French history, making it impossible to get to work, let alone anywhere else. Now, I don't want you to feel sorry for me at this point, because we pushed forward, we adapted. We recovered my wife's passport, and we got her a new cell phone despite the fender bender. I even discovered that I could ride my bike to and from work each day to beat the impossible gridlock of the strike. By January 2020, we had encountered many closed doors during our foreign adventure, but we're adapting to the situation and pushing forward. Unfortunately, as we adapted to the situation, so did a virus. In mid-February 2020, when my family was on holiday in Venice, Italy, we learned through news reports that the hospitals around Venice were filling up with patients infected with a new coronavirus. Within a few weeks, France and the rest of Europe were completely locked down. We could not leave our apartment for more than 1 hour each day, and then when we were outside, we had to stay within 1 kilometer of our apartment. We responded to COVID-19 by again assessing the situation and trying to find ways to adapt in the face of the constantly evolving environment. Some of the things that we tried worked, while others failed spectacularly. For example, we created a new family schedule where we would all get up together, eat breakfast, and then divide up into zones, lots of zones, around our apartment where we would focus on online school and work. Some of the children adapted well to the new normal, while others struggled significantly. Looking outward, we found inspiration through the explosion of posts on social media of examples how others were coping. Leveraging this collective creativity, we started to come up with examples of our own. For example, we held a family egg drop competition where we engineered ways to prevent an egg from breaking when dropped off the 4th floor balcony of the stairwell in our apartment building. I lost this competition, unfortunately. We bought a dozen Nerf guns and held Nerf gun capture the flag competitions in the courtyard of our apartment complex with the neighbor kids. Now, we may not have worn masks, but we were wearing our safety goggles. We held photography art competitions and board game marathons. Our family even grew in number when my wife gave birth to our 7th child, Benjamin, in an inflatable birth pool in the bedroom of our apartment. Now, this is a good story, but it will have to wait for another time. As my family learned to adapt to living through COVID lockdowns, I also had to learn to adapt to teleworking for most of the remaining 18 months of my exchange program. One problem that was particularly challenging that I was able to work on from home was focused on characterizing composite fiber architecture in 3-dimensional data sets. My team at AFRL previously had a lot of success at developing automated tools for fiber identification and tracking in composite images. These energy-based, neighbor-dependent segmentation and geometric-based object detection algorithms worked really well for data collected using optical or electron microscopy. In contrast, this data set provided to me by my colleagues at Onera was captured over short time frames using X-ray computed tomography, think CT scanner for materials, during active mechanical loading, and contained much more image noise than the data that I had worked with previously. Everything that my AFRL team had developed was useless. To solve this problem, I dove into learning new convolutional neural network-based machine learning approaches for object detection. In my research, I discovered a set of open source tools coded by Facebook Research to find objects like people, buildings, and trees in images posted on social media. I hypothesized that this same toolbox, Detectron 2, would work just as well at finding things like fibers, pores, and cracks in my composite data sets. After carefully training the data using images that I had labeled, I was able to get over 95% detection, where all previous methods that I had tried yielded less than 10%. 95%, baby. After this, I continued to augment the open source tools with my French collaborators with an algorithm that would assign a geometric description, think circles, to the fibers in order to construct digital models to study the composite performance as a function of the composite architecture. Now, as I have looked over my experience in France, I've come to realize that innovation in life and in research is dependent on two key principles. One, iterative adaptation, and two, strategic partnership. First, let's consider the concept of iterative adaptation. A famous United States Air Force colonel, John Boyd, put it this way. He said that we first must observe, then orient ourselves to the current situation, next decide what to do about it, and then act. He called this the OODA loop. It is a loop because we must continually cycle through observing, orienting, deciding, and acting as a situation continually evolves. Often, those who cycle through the loop more quickly are most successful. Think pilots in air-to-air combat. As we had to learn to first live in a foreign country and then survive in a foreign country during a pandemic, we had to adapt. We changed the ways we did things. We rode bikes instead of driving cars. We came up with new, creative ways to spend our time to replace the old ways that were no longer options. And as the situation continued to evolve, we continued to adapt. Second, let's consider the concept of iterative adaptation coupled with the concept of strategic partnership. Admittedly, often the ideas that we employed were not our own. Social media provided inspiration for our family during lockdowns just as much as open source software provided inspiration for my research. Our neighbors were essential to our survival during COVID just as much as me working with my French collaborators was essential to solving a difficult materials characterization problem with noisy data. Now, taking us back to our room of doors, I want you to consider the concepts of iterative adaptation and strategic partnership as a strategy to break through the doors that block our way. Don't let the closed doors stop you. Open them. Step into the dark passages and move forward. As you encounter dead ends, don't be afraid to iterate and try new doors. Along the way, you will be most successful if you partner with others. They will have found keys to some of the locked doors or know which doors are most promising. Pause now and consider a challenge that is currently before you, or a door that is currently closed to you. It may be a research question, a job challenge, or a relationship. Are there immediate actions that you can take to move forward, or people that you can partner with to help you? Resolve today to try some of these ideas and find others to work with to achieve your objective. As you move forward and encounter setbacks, don't be afraid to iterate on your ideas until you break through and achieve success. I promise you, your future is there, right through that door. Now go and push through it. Thank you.
C'est très bien, oui? Excuse my French. Should probably take this off. But that said, Craig had a great example of showing us that opening the right doors can give us partnerships otherwise thought unattainable, solving problems and really helping us forge into the future in a better way. And he did this all while strengthening our partnerships in allied nations, while I'm showing that resiliency is key during these events, especially while being in a Parisian flat with 7 kids. Another round of applause for Craig. Come on.